Keith Coughlin this morning from European Metals. Keith, good morning. Good to see you.
Morning, Andrew. Good to see you as well.
A big milestone you announced towards the end of last week here for the Synovitz project, this investment from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Just tell us firstly a little bit about the bank themselves.
Sure. So the EBRD is it's an international financial institution. Was established in 1991 as the reunification of Eastern Europe, gathered momentum and became a real thing, and they were heavily involved in that. It's owned by the European Union itself, the European Investment Bank, and then 71 different countries are all shareholders in the bank, including the Czech Republic, our country of operations. And that's important. It's very, very deeply connected with the European Union, with the European Investment Bank. Numerous joint collaborative plans that they've had together, and there's been a lot of talk in the first half of this year about the EBRD and the EIB being shoulder to shoulder to assist in the energy transition in Europe. So this is very much not about a small €6 million investment into European Metals. It's about setting things up for our project finance and securing that a little later in the year.
Well, clearly. So you're viewing this as an endorsement here for the project?
Absolutely. EBRD conducted extensive due diligence, appointed their own independent advisors as part of the process. We've had to go through all of their internal processes, not just as an investment, but all ESG criteria, meeting EBRD's requirements with regards to this, which makes sense because those requirements are exactly the same requirements as everyone else in Europe will have the people who we eventually get funded in this project with.
Well, you mentioned a bit earlier, plus in the announcement here, this could open the pathway to potentially securing project financing. Tell us a bit more about how so.
Well, I've considered for some time that financing the Synovitz project would be a collaborative agreement between all the various interested parties in Europe. The European Union has been saying for some time now about needing to develop critical raw materials of their own to enable the energy transition. The Critical Raw Materials Act, the draft of which we've seen, the final version we're hoping to see, at the end of their summer, goes to formalising that with regards to providing financing for these sort of projects, with regards to speeding up the permitting process. So it's a collaborative approach. It's going to involve the EU, it's going to involve the European Investment Bank, and now the EBRD. It will involve the off-takers, the various member states, etc., as Europe goes down the path of securing as much of the critical raw materials that they need to enable this energy transition locally.
And in recent times, Keith, you've had the Czech Prime Minister on site at Synovitz.
Yes, exactly. So you can see it's building, Andrew. The whole, things have moved slowly in Europe relative to other parts of the world, but you can see that momentum is building, and the support for this project is coming from all the right areas.
How are things progressing as far as the test work?
Test work's progressing very well here in Perth. We made a preliminary announcement about the test work perhaps a month ago now. I think we're due the final results in 2 or 3 weeks, which obviously we'll put out to the market, but it's been very encouraging, very high levels of recoveries in the 90% plus areas, which is fantastic from a project point of view. That feeds into the final stages of the definitive feasibility study that we expect to see in the last quarter of the year. And now that we're talking about financing options, all of those things coming together at the same time are exactly what we want to see.
So what are the big milestones, Keith, between now and the end of the year that you're working on?
So the DFS, as I said, DFS, early in the fourth quarter to put the final numbers on the project. I believe that'll happen in conjunction with offtake. These discussions have been advanced as well. And, this collaborative approach that I mentioned earlier is very much coming to the fore. So, we expect to be able to deliver the market the final numbers from the definitive feasibility study alongside all the final test work, with a financing solution and offtake partners towards the end of the year.
And Keith, give us a bit more detail, just building on what you were saying a bit earlier, this transition in Europe to e-mobility. From a macro perspective, what are we seeing?
Well, we're seeing a complete and full commitment to the transition to green energy. I don't think there's any dispute about that. The European Union is completely committed to an electric vehicle future, completely committed to building a battery industry. And the missing ingredient, frankly, in Europe is their own local sources of critical raw materials. And clearly, the EU doesn't want to rely on other parts of the world for all of this. They've said that very bluntly. They're very keen to develop critical raw materials within the EU where possible. There are not very many lithium projects at all. There are arguably none as advanced as Synovets. So, this is all very good, very supportive for us in bringing the project to production.
Good to speak, Keith. Thanks for your time.
Thank you too, Andrew. All the best.